Multitask right now.
Morning, Captain.
Morning. Stop for a second. Stop for a second. I lost my count.
Everywhere's pretty good, to be honest. Watch out for that stuff.
Count, Alex.
Right. Whenever you're done. I'm just going to go upstairs again and do the second group. There were just a few. We have 27? 27?
27's on board right there.
27?
Yeah.
Submarine.
Oh, they are?
No,
There was
nobody-
someone.
nobody-
Anyway,
You don't want someone getting this.
Oh yeah, they're going crazy too.
The sometimes they go down. Yeah.
Pretty good. Sounds. Yeah. Well watching.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for checking in early. We are steps ahead. The other boats were already winning. Fabulous. We could just have everybody's attention, please. Just a few extra minutes so I can talk about safety so that we can get off the dock. Want to keep you out of this area. Does everyone see these lines? This very heavy wooden block. Is this a good place to walk through? Behind the boom instead of your head. So just put your hand, especially if you're wearing a hat. This will change height throughout the day. So it might be lower later on the trip. I barely can hear. Just put your hand there. Seated, please.
You can't leave us. Somebody standing. Thank you. All right, go ahead, please. Like fun. Pardon me?
a civil war. That wasn't a big secret. What they didn't know was it was going to last that bloody long. And as a result, the warehouses had all gone dry. The price of a bale of cotton had gone from $99 a bale to $999 a bale. And I don't have to tell you how big a bale is or what a dollar traded for you to recognize that's a 10x jump in the price of raw materials, and that basically is disaster. So they needed to keep those mills going, otherwise they're just collections of rusty machinery and brick. So they built the Star of India on speculation to go out to India, which was a crown colony, and bring back fiber, cotton, hemp, jute, Basically, it was called generically the jute trade. She made 6 such voyages. Finally, the two things happened. The war with the South, the Civil War, was over, and the Suez Canal opened. Well, let's put it this way. Sailboats like to do this into the wind. They've got to catch the wind, they got to follow the wind. Steamboats can go in a straight line. Guess which boats work best in a canal? You got it, steamboats. So the Star was going, what do we do? Well, the owners put her up to sail, but fortunately, Queen Victoria's government had another little project they were doing. They had managed to sit on and otherwise suppress the dear old Maoris in New Zealand and got them to be, well, at least not quite as ornery as they had been. They weren't killing as many people. As a result, New Zealand was open for exploration. Her Majesty's government wanted to get good, honest Englishmen out there rather than people they didn't like. So they had a policy of assisted immigration. You see, there had been a bank collapse. Somebody had created a bank bubble in Europe, and along with the mechanization and social upheaval of the dawning machine age in England, there were a lot of people who were out of work. There were a lot of people who didn't have anything to do, and the best thing to do was to package them up and give them assistance, pay for them to immigrate to New Zealand, develop a farm, a ranch, whatever, do something profitable. So if you had a trade, if you were a carpenter, you were a seamstress, you were a blacksmith, any other useful trade, the Crown would pay for you to take yourself and your family and your goods and go to New Zealand, start a new life. It's very simple for those of you who went to school here to compare it to the Homestead Act that we had here to settle the Great West as we expanded westward. We took the land away from the Indians, they took it away from the Maoris, so it's all kind of the same. So that was her deal. She did that for nearly, well, let's see, from 1871 till 1898. She made 21 trips around the world, taking anywhere from 50 to 100 to, at one voyage, 409 immigrants to New Zealand. And in fact, the museum several years back had a clever idea that maybe wasn't so clever. We advertised in the newspapers in New Zealand that we would sponsor anybody who could prove that at least one of their grandparents or great-grandparents came over to New Zealand on the Star. Well, after the 4,000th application for free airline tickets came in, we said, oh, we better change that. So we told them we'd buy them a meal when they got here. And but we did have a large number of people because these were young adults with families, and they were still young adults, and so they were still making families, and they did that very effectively when they got to New Zealand and made a lot of descendants. But when she was built, that was a relatively new technology. The insurance underwriters from Lloyd's came on board her while she was building in the Isle of Man, and they said, new material. I think you ought to double the frames. So they put, instead of every 3 feet, they put extra frames in between. That meant she's framed at 18 inches. That made her heavy. She was never a fast boat. Her best day of sailing ever was 250 miles in one day. If you work out that nautical miles. So if you work out the fine print, that comes out to just a tad over 10 knots, or about 11 and a half miles an hour. So she was never a speed demon. This is not a T-clipper. It is not a clipper. It is not a clipper ship. It's not a racing boat. It is a floating truck. But it's a dear old truck, and it survived. And in fact, during those fishing days, one time she was a little late getting out of Nushagak Bay and hit a freeze. A cold snap came in, and she watched a sister wooden ship get crunched to splinters. And the boys looked around and they saw those extra frames and said, they were a good idea. They were a good idea. Well, that's 4.5 sails. The ones that are like the sails on this boat, going 4.5 knot boat. They'll start putting those up from the bottom, working up. And then eventually they'll start putting the big square sails up from the bottom, going up. Why did they do the bottom? I wrote an editorial was, how can you let this great treasure decay right in front of your eyes? So the organization that became the Maritime Museum got together and starting in 1960 started the restoration of the Star of India. And they cleaned her all up. They took all the crud out of her, reballasted her, and started the long and laborious process of restoring her. They finally got the boat all together, and in 1976, in a good brisk breeze, they could go 30 knots. Of course, if there was a star, is not complete. The best thing you can think of is somewhere between a and the last magic thing is, well, see, if she'd been built 10 years later, she'd been built out of steel. Steel got cheaper after Mr. Bessemer got his patent straightened out, and they developed the open hearth process. That's why the Berkeley over there has a steel hull, not an iron hull. But iron is a magic material. It's hammered. That's why you call it wrought. And in that hammering, the slag inclusions in the raw iron are squished out flat. Many of them are driven out. That's why you do it. But the ones that remain act as, if you're right at the waterline, that's an added steel belt that was added during the restoration process to repair that damage. Now, we have come up with a better technique that we want to apply, and she's due to come out of the water this next year in 2019. And we're going to remove that steel belt, replace the material under which isn't oil.
boy.
You are there. Sit.
All right, you ladies can drop the line. Go ahead, drop the line. Okay.
The length of the maximum speed because of
California.
And there's 4 people on the map.
Online.
Oh yeah, well there was 2 originally, and then now there's 4 down to the next level.
Anyway, yeah, it's just annoying. But yeah, I'm sorry? Oh, thank you. Hang on.
He's going to the
Sorry, we did have to sell
And so the two add up to 0. We're stopped. It'll stay. Well, it slips sideways gradually, but if you're transferring cargo, you and the other ship are doing the same thing. Yes, but splints are so much nastier than yelling. pirate ships and walking the plank.
Uh-huh.
Well, the plank was invented pretty much by Robert Louis Stevenson for the books like Treasure Island. You don't need a plank. As you've seen on this boat with all the warnings from the crew, it's easy to just get somebody you don't like over the water. Just give them a shove. They didn't necessarily have the safety rails we have on this ship.
Right.
So the plank was kind of, it makes a good story, and it was picked up by the Hollywood movies. So you see planks in Errol Flynn pirate movies, but that's just as much made up as a wheel on a Spanish galleon. They didn't exist.
Memorial service for the departed.
Put yourself on a ship, and some of the modern safety equipment was developed gradually. First of all, when they were first 200, 300 years ago, we had a lot more people that wanted to volunteer for being sailors, so safety wasn't as big a deal. And the best example are the foot ropes that you see on the Star of India and on the upper works of the Californian. In the 16th century, they didn't have foot ropes. They either, if they had to do something out on the yard, they'd skinny out on the yard, hand over hand, and do it. And if you fell off, that was too bad. But,
You basically died, right?
you basically fell in the water. Also, a thing to bear in mind is sailors didn't tend to learn to swim. They thought that was very unlucky. That if you were lost at sea, that was God's hand,
Wow.
and you best just get it over with. Take a big drink, and that's it. So it was
Sailors
unusual.
didn't know how to
Unusual. It was unusual for sailors of 100 years or more ago to be able to swim. They thought it was unlucky.
Wow. What idiot invented that?
Well, it was just tradition, and generally it was very difficult for a large ship like, let's say, imagine the Star, to turn around if a man went overboard.
It could not. Yeah, it could
the
not.
drill we have for man overboard drill, which is immediately somebody sees it, they drop the man overboard buoy out over, and somebody points out to the sea, and they circle around. That is a relatively recent development. It was assumed that if a man went over at sea, unless he was able to grab a trailing line from the ship, he was lost. And that was God's
There was
proper.
no procedure, basically.
There was no procedure. There was basically God's proper harvest.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yes, I'd like to switch to channel 10, please. 10.
so as we go back to behind the Star of India, you see their rudder is incredibly small, right? Yeah. The rudder is nowhere near large enough to effectively attack a boat. Now, when I'm sailing in my little fin, which is an Olympic class single-handed boat, I toss my carbon fiber rudder over, and in a millisecond I'm on the other tack, and no problem, right? Star of India tosses her rudder over, very little happens. Okay, it's more of a tuning device rather than a true turning device. So to turn the boat, you basically, and right now they're not winning. I will tell you right now. Yesterday took 43 minutes, and right now they're losing. What the Star of India was sailing like this, and they basically wanted to tack to starboard and have the boat go like this. As you can see right now, the boat is falling back off like this. Okay, so there's two ways basically to turn the boat. You can try to get the bow to go this way, or the stern to go that way. Okay, so when they're doing that at first, they're trying to get the center of effort to go as far back as possible. What does that mean? That if I put this phone and I push in the middle, the phone's going to go sideways. If I push in the front, it's going to rotate like this. That's not good if you're trying to turn that way. Or if I push like that, it's going to turn like that, right? So they're trying to move their center of effort as far back as possible. Okay.
So they can turn.
Now there's two ways that can be accomplished. One by going forward, also by going back. Right. So essentially, you saw the mainsail being. If you look now, see the mainsail is pushed over the side of the boat. I can tell you right now, they're going to end up probably jibing. I'll explain that in a second. Okay. But what they were doing now, in my opinion, what you have to do to do this maneuver, and notice the sails in the front are just flopping, right? Okay, so that's getting rid of my finger in the front, right? So they're trying to. So in essence, they're going to get rid of the forces that are pushing this way. So that's why the sails in the front are just flopping. They're trying to get all the forces that are in the back sailing efficiently as possible, and they're trying to get all the forces in the front to be inefficient as possible. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So the boat basically gets pushed this way because the rudder is not going to get the job done. Now, the same maneuver happened yesterday. So you notice the yard arms at the top are opposed to each other, right? One yard arm, the ones in the forward part of the boat, are tilted this way, and the one in the back are tilted that way. So what they're trying to do there is, as the wind, let's say the wind's coming from my body towards my phone. They're sailing like this. They're trying to get it so those yards in the front are on the other side of that wind. So they're helping to push the boat this way. Does that make sense? That's why they're split, and it's not happening. The things to look for to see an effective turn are to look at the flags on top of the mast. If they could have gotten those flags so they were on the opposite side of those sails, then the sails themselves would start pushing the boat that way. And then they can release the man and start going the other way. They did not happen. It did not happen. So they tossed it in the wind. Okay? And the wind is also, there's another force on the boat, another sail on the boat that you can't even see. It's not white. It's the boat itself, exactly. The boat itself you look at the sail area of the boat. So they weren't effective at getting it all the way across. So there was enough sail area on the vessel to shove it back. Now, I suspect what's going to happen now is they're either going to try it one more time, or they're going to turn the boat the other direction.
Other way, because the wind is coming
the
this way.
right now.
Right.
He's gonna wear.
Definitely not crushing their back. Right there.
Okay.
when she went out for
prettier.
And that's exactly what I did yesterday. I pulled forward. I went to the engine. So we're sailing, and on your right side, right? That means we're over here.